Hey, I'm here at your Metro PCS store. What's the best deal I can get for switching over?
How does a free smartphone sound?
Sounds good, but is it a tiny smartphone?
Nope, 5-inch HD screen.
Good brand?
Great brand. Samsung, and it's a Galaxy.
So I got a free Samsung Galaxy?
Yeah, you're a tough man to bargain with.
Everyone gets a free Samsung Galaxy On 5 at Metro PCS. Switch today and get a free smartphone after instant rebate. Yes, a free Samsung Galaxy. Metro PCS. Wireless figured out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales tax not included. Not valid for numbers currently on the T-Mobile network. See store for details, terms and conditions, and network info.
Welcome to the Success for Life podcast with David Schuman. I'll have on a couple minutes my special guest, Mike Weinstein from Zybek Sports. He has tremendous background as an entrepreneur, as someone who's built a business from the ground up, from a startup phase, now working with the highest levels with the NFL, all different types of sports companies, colleges, and universities. And he has tremendous background as an engineer working with NASA, built great success there, taking over to the sports world. And without further ado, let's bring on Mike Weinstein from Zybek Sports. What's going on, Mike?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, no problem. It's great to have you on the show. I want to dive in. This is a little different than when we had you on the Sports Tech Guys. We want to really talk about your whole background and really help people understand what it takes to really launch a startup and a business like you have and some of your background. So before we dive deep into it, let's get a little bit of your background in business and engineering and all the way up to today.
Okay. There's not a lot to say, but I did my undergrad at Colorado State University in mechanical engineering and went on to get an MBA from University of Denver. I was starting initially to work for, a big company, a big Fortune 200 in the corporate engineering group, managing the, large projects out in factories across the country. And what I found was that I had a hard time fitting into, the big organized corporations where everything just took so long to do. I mean, you just didn't go buy something. To make a machine work, you had to go through purchasing, and you go through the whole procurement process, and I had a hard time fitting into, the organized, big corporation. So I ended up forming my own company about 20 years ago, and not even really knowing what I wanted to do with this, but we did product development, product design, and engineering. One of the projects we did was for a group that was working with the Olympic Training Center, and this is kind of how it all started about 10 years ago from the sports side of things. And this group from the Olympic Training Center wanted us to develop a better way to measure the vertical jump. Still based on the flag system like what's being used at the NFL, but just more coach-friendly so that coaches don't have to do math, basically. We developed that and developed some timing systems, and people from around the world kept seeing what was installed at one of the Olympic Training Center locations and said, "Where'd you get this?" I said, "This guy up in Boulder, Colorado." And they gave me a call. We make another one and made another one. And it was a fun business because we were dealing with people from the sports industry. But I kept thinking this is such a massive industry that I can't believe no one else is going to come in and really clobber us in this market. And I was fearing the competition more than seeing the opportunity. This is, 10 years ago, all the way up to about 5 years ago. And then we started doing things like the NFL Scouting Combine, the Army Games, the All-American Games, some pretty high-profile events. And I really started to see that this is a great a great industry, and there is nobody else in this little market segment. And let's really build this business and get it to the next level and just prove that we can be delivering results to athletes. And that's kind of how we got to where we're at today. But one of the things we do a little different than a lot of other companies is that we design and build everything here in the United States in our shops here in Colorado. So it allows us to do our own manufacturing, so we're not at the mercy of an overseas group. But secondly, we can kind of build stuff first and then test it and then make it great. So we kind of have a slogan: we build it, engineer it, and make it great. Kind of in that order, which is exactly opposite of what you see in a major corporation. They would engineer it, design it, and model it, and then maybe test it, and then build it, and then see what works. So I know the best is probably somewhere in between what we're doing right now, where we build it, engineer it, make it great, versus exact opposite. But what we got is worked so far, and we've got a lot of systems out there, and we're testing a lot of youth athletes all the way through the professionals.
So I want to dive into your foundations there, and I think your foundations are really interesting. Now, you yourself were an engineer, or were originally building a lot of the products that you worked with back in your engineering company?
Right. Yeah, so I come from a total engineering background, and done basically all my career has been building stuff and engineering stuff and making things work and making things happen. And it hasn't been in the sports industry. So I think it's a lot of the other companies and the entrepreneurs I see in the sports industry are your typical, really motivated coach to make a better product or make something. They come from the sports industry, and they're trying to make something for the sports industry, where I came at it from a totally different direction, where we make stuff for industry and industrial applications, and we found the application for that in the sports industry. So not having the preconceived idea of what something needs to be allows us to really kind of see the forest from the trees, or just really be able to listen to the market very, very objectively, and not have all the baggage and the legacy, if you will, of the way things are supposed to be done in an industry. And I think that's been one of the reasons that we've been able to develop and deliver products and reports for the industry that's just very useful and applicable. We're not trying to take our opinion as to how things should be, but really, really listen to the market. And that's the most important thing I think that we or any other entrepreneurs and people trying to get started in the industry can do, is just really listen to it, and don't try to make your own judgments on stuff, but they'll tell you what they're looking for.
What advantage do you feel you had when you jumped into this business, with the fact that you had no sports background per se? What do you think was the advantage that you had diving into the sports industry? Was it that you had no bias towards anything?
I think that's a really big thing, but also the sports industry by definition is so competitive. And the way I've been getting into a lot of these different sports, things other than football, for example, is we can walk into industry leaders and say, this is the way the standards are. This is from the true science behind performance, and looking at it not from a competitive sports perspective, but from, this is the science behind performance, and this is the standard for assessing athletes. And we can do that without having any of the, again, the baggage and the legacy of what different programs have built themselves up to be. So with that, we're able to really enter these other areas. Go ahead.
And that that explains obviously your superior technical expertise. What about you would say the disadvantage in that would be that you have a situation where from a business standpoint, you don't initially have the connection. So what were some of the things that you had to go and do to go and make those industry-based connections coming from a purely technical space?
I think it was taking a lot of risk and doing a lot of things in the hopes that this was going to be a good thing to do going forward. For example, when the NFL Scouting Combine asked us to be a backup timer for them, I mean, we didn't get any compensation or anything from that, nor do we to this day. We just did it, and just knew this was going to be a good thing for us, and that there was absolutely no money in it, and there was no economic reasons on the short term for doing this. It's just taking a risk. And it's taking a lot of calculated risks in the industry where we could get a door to be open, and we jumped on it and just did things. I think that's what it takes if you're not really, really well known in the industry. But it's really just playing the hand you're dealt. And if we didn't have a good hand where we were well known in the industry, we had to use that to our advantage. And we had to just walk into different places and just be honest and say, hey, I'm not going to argue with you whether the 40-yard dash is an applicable test or the 5-10-5 means anything. If this is what the standards are, hey, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it the best. So I think that's where you just have to, again, play the hand you're dealt. And if you don't have the industry connections, you really find and communicate to whoever you're trying to work with in the industry, and just make it work, make it happen, and deliver results.
I want to touch, and I think it's really interesting because you're right. So many people come from the sports approach and then trying to figure out technology. I think a technologist has an advantage from that standpoint, especially we're talking obviously football, but it could be any sport where testing components come in and things like wearables are becoming more and more prevalent, and measuring things. Where have you found your greatest advantage going from being an engineer working for a corporation to building your own company to now having a startup that is a fast rising startup in the sports tech space? What have you found has been the advantage versus being corporate, it being out on your own? And what's the disadvantage, too?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of advantages of being in a big corporation where you do have departments that do things that you end up doing on your own, like the whole IT department. When I was back in a big corporation, my phone didn't work. Someone came down in their little cart and fixed your phone, fixed your computer and everything. You had a lot of economies of scale with that versus your own corporation. You end up doing everything. It's everything from cleaning the toilets to designing new circuit boards to running machines to manufacture stuff. So that's where it's really challenging as a small company to keep everything moving without having the support staff like you do in a big corporation. But I think the advantages of being small and agile is that there's no decision process you have to go through, that if something seems right, you just do it. Like if it seemed right to do the NFL Scouting Combine for the first time, I didn't have to ask anybody, I just did it. And that's the kind of rapid response and market development, being agile to really deliver results to the market that it takes to beat the competition and be the best in the market sector. But I think, again, the most part I keep going back to is if you just really, really listen to the market. I didn't really know much about sports, and I played football my freshman year in high school, and that's about the end of it. So I'm not a big sports guy by any stretch of the imagination. But when you know that, you can just listen very, very carefully of what people want and what they're missing and what they need. And also you can just really listen for market cues to know what they're looking for, versus if you're grown up in an industry and you just know this is the way it is. I mean, you've got certain things that you were brought up with, your coaches have taught you, you just this is the way it is. But when I'm coming at it from a different angle, it's like, I don't know the way it is. I'm going to listen very carefully to what this market's looking for and deliver exactly what they want.
I think that's one of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs miss. I mean, that understanding and I guess on your sales calls and doing your research, figuring out, especially establishing a new slant on an industry, you have to do your research to figure out what can make you successful in that industry and help you to figure out the different parameters that are important of it. What are some of the pains that you've had to go through in starting up this company? You built a successful engineering firm. You took the plunge into this new space, and I'm sure you're a build-it junkie. So, what were the parts that were the pains of building up that startup?
Oh, it's everything's really hard. I'm not trying to discourage anybody from following your dreams and making a business happen, but it's very hard to, even a simple thing. I'll put it this way: the original thing that we did for like this group from the Olympic Training Center was designing a slight modification to the flag system for the vertical jump. You think, how hard can that be? And it's hard. I mean, there's like almost nothing that's really easy when it comes to product development. And if you think it's going to take a week, it could probably take 3 months. And that's the thing I think that's just been so hard, is being able to, one, balance everything, but secondly, being able to just in time frames be able to develop stuff and make stuff happen. It's tough being able to go from an idea to a product. And things that you think are easy, they're often not. If you think they're easy, you probably don't really understand the problem well enough. Just speaking from experience, it doesn't happen overnight. And got to be patient with this. I mean, it's taken me 10 years to get the business to this area right now. So that's just when it takes a lot of patience.
What do you find is that the thing you most enjoy about the process of building your product and getting it out to the marketplace? What's the thing that you most enjoy about that, and how do you continue to capitalize on that feeling?
I like seeing things happen, building stuff. Always when I was a kid, I liked to build stuff. And actually make things and make something tangible that people can use or you can use, and you can see your results. I know everybody's got their strong point. Accountants like to see numbers and stuff, I would presume, and just lawyers like to see documents and things, I guess. But I like to see things built, and I think that's just really rewarding to just know that you could have an idea one day and you actually made something, you actually created something that is new and just hasn't been out there. And then I think the exciting thing is just looking at just really trying to optimize the hand you've been dealt and just figure out how to really fit this into an industry, and just getting really creative as to how to market this. And again, that's just where the fun is, when you just really listen to the market. And that's will tell you exactly the way to go with a lot of your ideas and your products, and just making things happen.
As far as penetrating the NFL, and this is a place that obviously a lot of people like to do business with, and you've been able to be on during the NFL Combine for everyone out there. When you see the timing system that's out there, and you see those times come across, and Mike has really changed the marketplace for getting accurate timing. Obviously, most people know the 40-yard dash, but across all the different testing parameters, you penetrate the NFL, which is probably one of the hardest marketplace companies to penetrate for an outside firm. The NFL loves to develop their own things or partner with their own things, and to be able to control it, and it's part of their success. What would be some of the things that you were able to do to work with the NFL and get everybody there on your side to understand what you do so well that is different from everyone else?
Well, just doing what you say you're going to do and just really following through has been the main thing with the NFL scouting. And that's really been the majority of what we've done with professional football. It's at the NFL scouting. And, the first few years we did it, you just be very, very careful to ask everybody, all right, if we come back next year and do this again, what do you want to see different? What do you want to be improved? And for the most part, I'd always hear nothing, do it exactly the same way you're doing it. And, that's been great. But we found some other areas that, for example, feeding the real-time clock signal to the NFL media. That was something that up to all the way into 2014, the commentators and the NFL media had to rely on essentially what would be a stopwatch time for the live reporting during the scouting combine. And what we've been able to do over the last 2 years is take a signal from our computer, my computer on the floor, directly to the NFL media trucks and show that real-time signal on the NFL media. Although that's still the unofficial time, that'll match very, very close, if not exact, to what the official times really are. But this allowed the commentators to say with confidence that, player X's 40-hour dash time was Y. So really following through and just being very controlled with it and just doing the right things.
As far as advice you would give to someone starting up a business in the tech space like you have, what would be some of the things that you would give as far as advice for people that's getting into a field in the tech space and doing business in that space?
Oh, I really encourage them to just do it. And I think we've never really had a business plan. We've never really had really organized. I knew where we wanted to go with this, but you got to just kind of stay agile and just kind of roll with it, and then the opportunities will often present themselves, and just be careful to know that what you think the market needs may not be what they need, and if you got to be agile enough to be able to adapt to the market and just deliver them what they're looking for, not what you think. And even from the business development things going forward after you do become established in an area, just to really increase the barriers to entry for the competition, just you got to stay one step ahead of that and just really just make sure you're delivering the results to the market that they're looking for.
Books that you've read, I'm curious, and mentors that you've had. What were, I guess, let's start with the first question on books. What are some of the things in business that you rely on, book-wise, that you would recommend to other people?
To be honest with you, I haven't read a book in a long time. I've been really busy on this business here, but I think in terms of mentors and things that I've learned from people in the past, there's always these little takeaways. When I was doing my MBA at the University of Denver, I remember just certain things like we did this one MBA type exercise where it was kind of a role-playing game called the Oogly Orange, where one person had all the oogly oranges and one person needed a fancy restaurant in Tokyo and one person was saving the kids in Ethiopia or something like that, and that you try to maximize your money with that. And everybody kind of gets in trying to get all the oranges one area, get everything somewhere else, and that if it's one of those role-playing games, and when you looked at, one person just needed the orange peels and one person needed the orange. And if you just would have stopped and said, all right, what do you need and what do you need, you could have made a lot more money and made a lot more people happy with that. So I think it's just really, understanding and remembering things that are totally, not even related to what you're doing and how they're applicable to what, where you're going with it. another example is at all of our events we're doing right now. We'll do events with up to 1,000 athletes coming into our events, and there's two things that you hear all the time. You hear the coaches down on the ground saying, "All right, athlete, it's on you." And then the other thing you hear is the kids always running back to the start of the 40 say, "What I get." And I think just listening to that right there, that has really set a lot of direction for what we're doing as a company. It's on you. I mean, think about that. The athlete starts the time, the athlete stops the time. And we're giving them the results and the tools that it's on them now. And it's on them to figure out how they want to improve themselves, how they want to get better. And I think the other thing is getting back to the start line is how'd I do? And it's delivering results to the market fast. So, I mean, I think those are the things that, you don't often hear this from a book or anything, but you're hearing it from just everything from the cocktail parties to the events that you're at right now, and just, really listening to what the people are saying kind of tells you what to do.
And capitalizing that from learning what people have said to you, is where do you see the industry going in respect to the timing and sports science? It's a rapidly growing industry. For years, you've been, and I've known you, for quite a while, you've been touting what, and evolving your product for, but now is the boom time for it. Where do you see the industry as a whole going?
Well, I think just using that last example, the kids coming back to the beginning, what I get. We're brought up in this society right now where we get real-time results. You're playing Nintendo, you press a button, you see something happen. You're watching Fox News and something blows up on the other side of the world, you're seeing it. And I think having these, getting these real-time results back to an athlete is where things are going to continue to go, and we need to be doing that. For example, we build a force plate that measures how much force an athlete develops, on the ground, ground-based forces. And so we've got it so where you can, say, be doing your vertical jump on a force plate. You jump up, you hit a flag, say you're at 27 inches, you see how much force you generated, and you're correlating what you just did to your results, cause and effect. And I think this real-time feedback, because like when the athlete does something and they know it right away that worked or that didn't work, you know what to develop. Or a lot of times with the 40-yard dash, we take 4 pictures at the start line. We take a picture before the time starts, as the time starts, 0.1 seconds and 0.1 seconds. We show the top athlete at every event, and then we show the athlete who just ran. The athlete who just ran obviously is not the top, and you say, why aren't you the top? You say, look, athlete, you stood up and then started to run. Don't do that. See what athlete number 1 did? He exploded forward. Do this, not that. And the guy, oh, I get it. So I think having this real-time feedback, and especially for athletes who are training, they got short attention spans and short memories, and that when you just get this muscle, you just know you did something right and you can get that verification of it. That's important, and that's what I think the industry is going to continue to go to.
That's really interesting, is that the immediacy in getting out on platforms. I guess there's going to have to be a way that those kind of things go out, the athlete gets it, and then the fans are going to want that immediately, that immediate time span, not just have to sit in front of their television to get it, but they want that feed hitting everywhere they are right now, because I know the NFL wants them sitting in front of the television, but eventually they're gonna want that hitting everywhere, and that immediacy of information hitting to every team, every person in real time. What is the biggest, single most important factor for you to have continued success in technology, which is an ever-evolving industry, and obviously specifically, what you're doing with sports?
I think the most important factor for success for us is making it usable by coaches, and making it so simple but so practical that your high school coach and somewhere who may not be a technology trained coach, probably a great coach, but anything with an on-off switch and electron, and it can cause some coaches challenges that it's got to be so easy and so pedestrian that it's usable. I think that's been one of the challenges for people who develop cool stuff for the industry, is that it's got to be usable by not just your average person, but I think someone who might be really a great coach, but is not really hip on technology and doesn't have 5 computers at home and that kind of thing. So I think that's really the biggest challenge and opportunity for entities in the sports industry, is just make sure that whatever you're building is going to be usable, easily usable by people who need to use it.
And how do you maintain, obviously, the technology, the cost, especially in this? How do you maintain a reasonable cost in this so that it could be consumed, without giving away all your secrets, but be consumed by everybody in the industry, so you can have widespread adaptation of the technology?
Well, we're doing 2 things. One is that we really have kept our prices very, very low, and we've taken a lot of features out of what might be cool to have. There's other timing systems on the market. I'm not knocking those in any way, and they do some cool things. For example, they'll do all this sampling to really figure out where the center of mass is of the body as it's passing a gate, and doing some really cool stuff with that. We're not doing that at the NFL scouting combine. You may need that for other things, but so we don't have that magic feature in our systems. And we've kept our legacy timing systems so simple. They've got an on-off switch and a red reset button. And that's all you need if all you want to know is, what the 40-yard dash time is and a 10-yard split. You hit the reset button, it all goes away. So I think keeping everything just at the raw basics of what the coach needs and the athlete needs is a really, really good start for keeping the costs low. And secondly, just the economies of scale and getting the production up. A lot of entrepreneurs and companies are really focused in the professional sports or maybe the D1 markets. And, we serve those markets very effectively, but my end game is the high schools. There's only 2,000 colleges in the U.S., but there's 35,000 high schools. And that's the market that I feel is just wide open right now, and that's the market that we're catering to. And with that market right there, you got to just be very cost conscious that anything under $1,000 is still a lot of money to a high school program, but they can often find a way to get it and afford it and make it happen if it's important enough to them. But if you're over $1,000 or $2,000, you might as well be $1 million or $2 million. If you can't afford it, you're out of the realm of it. So I think really keeping things at this price point that the market can handle is great. And the last thing is get creative. Find a way to deliver value that the equipment return doesn't cover. For most of our events, we don't do this all the time, but we are happy to really heavily discount our equipment, if not even just loan for free or give it away, because what we do with the data coming from our hardware is of more value than the hardware itself. For example, what if the infamous 40-yard dash, once we get the data from these events right here, we can tell whether an athlete is picking up positions as they're running the 40 or losing positions. And just with that data alone, we can make an athlete prescription as for what they need to be working on. And then in a very cost-effective manner, we can sell these reports to the parents and the athletes to how they get better. This is like their prescription for success. And in that model right there, the price of the equipment and the hardware, it kind of gets lost in the rounding. And so you're really sharing the equipment costs and the development costs of the equipment by delivering results. And with that, from the recurring revenue perspective, is just very, very profitable, but also it delivers what the athlete needs. the athlete doesn't care how fancy the timing system is. They probably don't even care what brand or anything it is. The athlete wants to know what they need to do to get better. The parent wants to know how close are they to getting a D1 scholarship. And that's what they care about. They don't really care about whether you're using a black timer, a red timer, if it's got buttons all over it. They care about what they want to do next.
How do you create something that might be considered a mild luxury into a necessity? For example, in the high school market with coaches, how do you create that urgency in the marketplace?
It's parents and athletes are they're a great market. I mean, you understand. I am a parent. I hang out with parents all the time, and parents will do anything for their kids if they know what to do. And parents are often confused. Is my kid good enough to play college ball? Do we even want to be able to have the option for him to potentially try out for a college team? So what we can really do with that is just find out what do the athletes and the parents are they really looking for, and how do we deliver those results? And so what we've been very successfully doing is, like when you go into college, you got to take the standardized academic test. Everyone takes the SAT or the ACT. You just know it. To get into college, that's what you do. And there hasn't been the equivalent of that for the sports industry to date, because there has many standards. So what we're doing right now is we just created the standard. And we're not even created it. We're just using what the NFL does and saying that this is the standard and delivering the process for doing that. And so to create this sense of urgency and need is we're getting as many strength coaches and college athletic admissions and scouts to understand that this is the certified results for an athlete. And with this, you can be assured that if you're looking at a person from California to New York, you're going to know that they all took the same test. It's the exact equivalent of trying to get into a big name school and having your dad grade your SAT in the back of the book. It ain't going to fly. You got to go to take the SAT test at a high school, give it a formalized test. And that's the exact thing that colleges and development programs are going to be looking for now as well. If you're going to do it right. Do it the way the NFL does it, and just don't argue about it. You just decide how the game is played.
There was a few years ago, maybe about a handful of years ago, there was a company called, I don't know if you ever heard of it, called NAX, that attempted to do what you did, but they had a fundamental flaw, which means that they weren't doing the automatic timing system, and they weren't utilizing not just the automatic timing system, but they weren't utilizing timing experts. So they utilized high school coaches and they spread wide and pretty deep nationally, but no one understood their standards or valued their standards. How, from a communication standpoint, how do you communicate to the stakeholders, parents, athletes, and then college coaches, or when you work with the NFL coaches? How do you manage all those stakeholders, and how do you communicate the importance of everything to all those stakeholders?
I think you have to make it very, very simple, and you have to kind of draw on an analogy that everybody understands. For example, everybody knows you got to take the SAT, the standardized academic test, to get into college. And this is what we have right now, is that this is the standardized athletic test. So it's just got to be, everyone's going, well, duh, and everybody has to be taking the same test for this to really have value to the industry. And so I think it's really communicating that that this is just the standard, but doing things in a way that no one's going to argue with you. And again, like if the NFL scouting does it this way, just do it that way. Don't argue about whether running 40-yard dash is a good test or not, or anything. This is the SAT test that professional football is using. Just do the same thing. So I think when you're really selling this to the stakeholders is making it pedestrian enough that people really understand it or understand it enough to know what's good and what's bad. At so many events that kids have gone to and go to, that they're often handed a handwritten 3x5 card with some handwritten numbers on it and say, okay, here's your numbers, good luck, come see us again. And parents will do anything for their kids if they know what to do. And what we're doing is that we're going that next step and just showing how that data, what that data means, what they need to work on for such a simple term. Do you need to work on your start or your top end speed? Those are your choices. We don't get any further than that. And just that alone has enough value to the parents that they know what to do. And it keeps the athlete engaged in this whole process. So I think really delivering to the stakeholders and putting it into terms that they understand are important. And lastly, like we do the power index. That's something that we developed so we can have one winner at our events. So like if we're doing a 1,000-person combine, how do we know who's the best athlete? It's tough. How do you compare a big offensive lineman to a little bitty running back? And we developed the power index that will show, it's essentially like a power to weight ratio for an athlete. But what we've done for that is that we've calculated this based on all the publicly available information each year for the NFL scouting, so that we can show the athlete how they compare to the professionals. And we do enough with D1 colleges that we can do it for big college programs. So from the high school, we show the athlete where they are, where they hope to be, and where they dream to be, and how to get there from that. That has nothing to do with the equipment. And I think that's the thing the takeaway from this is that it's not just the equipment and the hardware that we manufacture. We're delivering results, but we're delivering results in a way that makes sense and are just, kind of somewhat common sense, but that takes a lot to go from an abstract concept like how good is an athlete to something that's actionable and understandable by the parents and the athletes.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. If there's any tips you'd like to leave, first of all, where can people find you on Twitter, and what's the best way to reach your company?
We're on Twitter, and our website is Zybek Sports, ZYBEK Sports.com. And we've got all the products that we sell are on the website right there. And in the next couple of weeks, we're updating everything. We've come out with a new line of even easier to use products for timing the 40 and the vertical jump and developing a lot of the athleticism. And definitely follow us on Twitter.
Awesome. I appreciate you coming on. If you can give one piece of advice to someone trying to build a business out there or ready to start a business, what would that piece of advice be?
It's going to sound kind of like an oxymoron, but have a plan, but go with the flow.
Very interesting. Have a plan, but go with the flow. Don't get caught up in just getting stuck on your plan. Go out there and basically do it, but know what you want to do. I appreciate you coming on. People go to ZybekSports.com, @ZybekSports on Twitter, to talk more with Mike or ask him any questions. I encourage you to do that. I really appreciate you being on the podcast. It's always a pleasure, and I enjoy working with you and wish you very much success.
Great. Hey, thanks for having us on. I really appreciate it.
All right. Have a great day. That was Mike Weinstein from Zybek Sports. I think he really covered some really interesting things. First of all, as an engineer and what I would call one of those brilliant guys out there, he left corporate to really focus on an opportunity where he can go and succeed on his own and make his own way. And he talked about just going out and building. He loved to go out and build it and see the product in the market space and see what happens with it. And then the other thing I thought that he touched on, which was really critical, is make sure that you go into whatever industry that is, whether you're building a product or a service solution, you understand what the marketplace wants. And I think he really took the time to go and find out what was wanted in the marketplace, coming and being an outsider, being an engineer, not necessarily a football or now in all the sports he's doing, a sports expert, but being a technologist. He took the time to understand what was going on in that industry and what can make his product successful. and he's done that. He's really he's a disruptor in the industry. He's changing it. He's forcing the announcers. You might have seen a couple of times announcers like, why are these guys seem like they're running slower? No, the time is really accurate, and that's what it is. Much like a track and field, when track and field went to automatic timing, it took a while for people to adjust and understand what the real time was, but now obviously that's the norm. You watch the Olympics, it's fully automatic timing. There is no such thing as a hand time. And so in sports in high school and even the NFL, it was an archaic system that he's now disrupted and changed, and that's an important thing. Understand where you can disrupt the marketplace and go and capture it. Mike has done that. Find out more about him at Zybek Sports on Twitter and ZybekSports.com. Before I sign off, make sure you go and check out our podcast over on iTunes. Rate them. Give us a lot of love. You can go and search either by my name, David Schuman, or by our guests and find those podcasts, and you'll be able to see a lot more. Rapidly becoming one of the biggest podcasts out there, Successful Life Podcast. Tell all your friends. Next up, we have another subsequent podcast coming out from me talking about entrepreneurship success and the effects of it going forward, both failures and successes with you and your family, and how to manage that and how to build your business. I look forward to talking to you. Until next time, this is Dave Schuman signing off.
Hey, I'm here at your Metro PCS store. What's the best deal I can get for switching over?
How does a free smartphone sound?
Sounds good, but is it a tiny smartphone?
Nope, 5-inch HD screen.
Good brand?
Great brand. Samsung, and it's a Galaxy.
So I got a free Samsung Galaxy?
Yeah, you're a tough man to bargain with.
Everyone gets a free Samsung Galaxy on 5 at Metro PCS. Switch today and get a free smartphone after instant rebate. Yes, a free Samsung Galaxy. Metro PCS. Wireless figured out. Coverage not available in some areas. Sales stocks not included. Not valid for numbers currently on the T-Mobile network. See store for details, terms, and conditions, and network info.